NBA free agency. It's like a monsoon storm. You can see it coming for miles, but when it finally hits, all the granulars of information that's hitting you, sometimes it's too much to consume. If you open your mouth in surprise, you're going to get some sand granules up in your teeth. Nobody wants that. So here we are, a day after free agency opened, 21 hours ago. The Phoenix Suns came out firing on all cylinders. James Jones, Matt Ishbia, the front office team for the Phoenix Suns instantly started making an impact as they shaped the roster around their big three and their little four in DeAndre Ayton, but with Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal. Now we have some understanding of not only who the players that they're going to roster are for the 2023-2024 season, but we also have an idea as to how the team and the front office sees their roster construction and how they want to operate. So we're going to navigate all that. We're going to talk about all the transactions that occurred up to this point, which we are recording July 1st at noon Arizona time. If anything happens in the middle of this, I know we'll be able to tell you live, and you might even get some fun reactions. Who knows? Maybe we trade DeAndre Ayton and Cameron Payne to for Dame Lillard in Portland with no picks. Yeah, here's hoping. It's not going to happen. But welcome, everybody, to the Suns Jam Session podcast. And simultaneously, we are streaming on the Geeks channel. SunsGeek is joining me. Matthew has some prior engagements. He's busy on this Saturday afternoon. So I thought if I'm going to get another sicko, another geek, if you will, to talk Suns free agency, I got to get Brandon. I got to get the Suns geek. Geek, how you doing?
I'm fantastic, brother. I've been pretty much drunk on coffee the last 12 hours. My ear pods are falling out, but I got my headphones on standby just in case. And we just had a trade right before we went live. Not a Suns trade. Don't panic, Suns fans. But yeah, Obi Toppin going to the Pacers for 2 second-round picks. And yeah, NBA free agency, NBA offseason, man. I'm pumped. And don't worry, I'm on standby just in case Damian Lillard gets traded and we can freak out live on the podcast.
Perfect. Yeah, you monitor the socials, and I'm with you. It was a crazy first 20 minutes of free agency.
Yeah.
From 3 to 3:20, I was just like sitting there, obviously managing bright side of the sun. I'm making sure that we're putting out quality articles. I have my pre-written things that I think are going to happen, so I got them ready to go. And then, of course, none of them happen. Everything goes sideways, and I'm just like, oh shit! I wasn't expecting 4 transactions in the first 7 minutes. And that's what we got from the Phoenix Suns, but that's what you want, is you want decisiveness. You want to see that players who are going to come here on a veteran minimum deal are doing so right off the bat. There's no sitting around and waiting for an opportunity to have somebody else come in and snag them. James Jones, his team, they were on the phones. They were making it happen, just as you were going live on your channel, and we are now talking about it on this edition of the Suns Jam Session podcast. So thank you for joining us. Anybody who's watching along live or at a later time on the tubes, go ahead and hit the thumbs up, Hulk smash it, as SunsGeek likes to say.
Like
if you're listening to the podcast, please give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. If you're on Spotify, just give us a 5-star rating. It's a review on Apple Podcasts. It's always appreciated. We'll read it live right here on the pod. This is also a reminder that if you are in Arizona and you have not signed up for DraftKings, fuck are you waiting for? Shit's been out for like 2 years almost. Like, get on there. If you are a new user or you just turned 18 and you can legally gamble, or I'm sorry, if you're legally 21, you can receive a $150 bonus bet instantly after following just 3 steps. Create an account, deposit, wager $5 on any sport. That simple. Whether it's your first wager and if it wins or lose, you'll still receive that $150 in bonus bets simply by using code SunsJam when you sign up. Doing so supports the pod, and make sure you use that code SunsJam. Again, if you're a new user on DraftKings, this offer is only available for new customers who are 21 and over and physically present in Arizona. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. Check out the episode description for full terms of the offer. Whew, I'm getting better.
Well done on that little promo right there.
I'm a trying. So on that note, again, it's afternoon. It's Saturday. I should be day drinking, but I'm day drinking some DDP, some Diet
Need
Dr.
that
Pepper.
sugar, man. During free agency and the off season, it's fun to have a nice drink every once in a while, but we got to get loaded up on caffeine and sugar.
Amen.
Man. We can't be day drinking like we did with the Bradley Beal stuff.
No,
that was like a celebration, but we got to stay focused, man.
Yeah, it's nonstop. I completely agree with the geek. If you're sitting around and you're drinking while you're enjoying this content, good. but we got to stay laser focused in case anything gets in. I keep feeling my little watch going off over and over again because
it's just
you never
the
know.
Austin Reeves notification, signed a contract for
With the Lakers,
for the
56
Lakers,
million.
4 years. And just real quick, he deserves it, but like, I don't know. He's going to have to earn that money pretty much is what I'm saying. He's a good player. He proved me wrong, but
he is. And I wish,
a lot of money.
I wish the rest of the NBA would have driven his price up. There was an opportunity for like the Rockets or the Spurs to offer him something higher than 4 years, $56 million just to fuck the Lakers because they were going to pay it.
Yeah.
But oh well. This isn't a Lakers podcast. This is a Suns podcast. So pop them if you got them. Let's talk Suns, baby. Suns free agency. It's been a wild, wild ride as the Suns, even before 3 o'clock Eastern time, Arizona time, the gates opened up. So I just want to run real quick, Geek, through all of the transactions that occurred. We'll break these down a little in more detail as the podcast continues. But here's what the Suns did over the past couple days. The first thing they did is they opted into Ish Wainwright's deal. They then fully guaranteed Cameron Payne's contract. And then right before, like 20 minutes before free agency, they pulled the qualifying offer off the table for Jock Landale. Yep. And we'll talk about that. They signed Drew Eubanks. Then they re-signed Josh Okogie. They signed Keita Bates-Diop, KBD.
It's hard to pronounce sometimes.
It's Keita, right?
Yeah, it's Keita. I'm calling him Keita. So
okay, I'm calling Keita, but it's like Keita. Yeah. It's like keto diet. It's Keita. You have them re-signing Damian Lee. Then they signed, let's see, Chimezie Metu.
Yeah, I'm having trouble pronouncing that name as well. Yeah,
it's like, damn you, Suns, give me a Smith or something. Make it easy on me,
or a Johnson or a Junior or something.
Somebody,
one of those common names.
And then they signed Yuta Watanabe.
Yeah, let's go.
And that's everything they did. And they did that all within the first, I want to say 40 minutes of free agency. I think Yuta Watanabe was signed at 3:40 AZ time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
But outside of that, or maybe it's 4:40 Arizona time. But that being said, when you take a look at the way that the Suns have filled out their roster, and that's what they've done ultimately here, is for all intensive purposes, they've filled out their roster. Okay, if you look at their total number of players who are quote unquote under contract, because we know that you can't sign into these contracts technically until July 6th. This is the moratorium period. But they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 players under contract of this moment. That doesn't include Toumani Camara, who hasn't signed his rookie deal. That would be 15. Knowing that most likely Camara, perhaps Isaiah Todd, who was acquired in the transaction with the Washington Wizards, would become two-way players, and that the Suns could roster 3 two-way players this upcoming season. That would put them technically at 13 roster spots. When you take a look at all those transactions, I'll start with this question for you, Geek. Who do you believe the 5th starter will be? And did they identify one by making these moves?
I feel like this question might be a little to be determined right now, all because of Torrey Craig. And I am really keeping an eye on that. Because as I read on brightsideofthesun.com, go check everything out over there.
I don't even plug my own site half the time.
We still have his bird rights. Congratulations, by the way, by becoming the site manager over there.
Thank you.
But we have his bird rights, and apparently we can bring him back. I think it was like $5 million or whatever. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is I think it's yet to be determined just because of Torrey Craig. But I mean, is Josh Okogie a fair answer as our 5th starter? I mean, I hate to use this word post Monty, but you're bringing back continuity, familiarity, and Frank Vogel, new playbook, Kevin Young and all that, but why not Josh Okogie, man? And this is what I really like, especially with our bench, is we have so many guys who are going to compete for minutes. And you obviously this because we've talked about it. You don't want to experiment in the playoffs, but you want to experiment during the regular season. You want to be like a mad man playing 2K, switching out lineups, doing all these substitutions during the regular season to see what works and see what doesn't work. So I don't even know if we're going to have like a permanent fifth starter until later in the year. And I think that's okay. These guys are going to play and work hard for minutes. And a lot of these guys are going to have to earn their minutes. Let's be real, man. And, we can talk about it later, but some of these two-way contracts and some of these summer league guys and even the bottom of the roster, they're going to have to earn it, man. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I guess I'm not a betting man, but if I was, I would say Josh Okogie.
And I think with this, there really is no correct answer because the Suns, with the transactions that they made, didn't really sign somebody who you're like, yep, exactly. That's the fifth guy right there. So I think you're right in the fact that, one, you don't want to experiment in the playoffs. And unfortunately, that's what Monty Williams did last year. It's one of those things that essentially rode him out of town. His lack of adjustments. Remember, in the 8 games in which Kevin Durant played with the Suns in the regular season, the team was 8-0. In the 8 games that Kevin Durant played in the regular season, Josh Okogie was a starter.
Yep.
Game 1, first round against the Clippers, Torrey Craig starts. And in that series for the first 2 or 3 games, Torrey Craig was putting up offensive numbers because he was knocking down the shots that were provided to him due to the gravity of the players around him. But ultimately, it didn't work. And if you tell me it did, they were bounced out in the second round, so it didn't work. For some reason, Monty Williams started experimenting at the wrong time. You're right, Brandon. This is a team that has a ton of pieces, I feel now, that are going to allow them the opportunity to experiment. But I still am slightly frustrated that they don't have a defined fifth starter. And I feel like, as you mentioned, if they were to bring back a Torrey Craig, I feel like that solidifies it because Torrey Craig does become your fifth guy automatically. And then everybody else, you try to work into a rotation, see how it works, knowing that this team now is deep, in my opinion, especially as compared to last season, if and when injuries occur. Now, you mentioned Torrey Craig, his bird rights. What's very advantageous about Torrey Craig is the team can offer him like $12 million, which makes it not only a more appealing for him to come to Phoenix or to stay in Phoenix, but it also makes him appealing from a managerial standpoint because that becomes a contract that you can trade if and when that time occurs because you don't have any.
He's been traded before, just saying.
Yes, he has. And if you need to stack a couple contracts together, knowing that you have nothing but veteran minimum guys, it would take 6 veteran minimum guys to equal a $12 million contract. It's just not going to happen. You'd have to okay, the entire depth is now gone. Can I bring in one guy for $12 million? Or you have Torrey Craig plus a couple decent veteran minimum guys equals a $14 million contract. So there's an advantage there. And I actually, as I mentioned before, writing for Bright Side of the Sun, I have a Torrey Craig piece ready to go. I thought he'd be one of the first guys that we had signed, and he wasn't. They still haven't signed him. I was like, I did all that work prepping for it. So once it was a copy, paste, send, boom, it's posted on the site. We beat everyone to a good story. And that's just the way it goes come free agency because you never know what's going to happen. Now, there's advantages and disadvantages of Josh Okogie, in my opinion. The disadvantage of Josh Okogie is he essentially is your 3, which forces Kevin Durant to be your 4. And these are quote unquote, it is positionless basketball, but ultimately,
especially with this roster,
that's what the team has shown us is that they want to go into this positionless basketball kind of modus operandi, if you will. So if you have J.O., then KD's playing the 4, which means you have to rely on him a little bit more for defensive rebounding and physicality against opposing teams that have more physical 4s/5s, and that has the potential to wear him down a little bit. But that being said, entering free agency, what were your expectations of how the Suns would navigate it?
That's a great question. First off, I actually waited, for anybody who cares, I waited like 30 minutes to go live because I had absolutely no clue what they were going to do. I figured they were going to sign somebody, but maybe they decided to wait or whatever. I just kind of waiting. And then, as you mentioned, we started getting all these signs, boom, 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 boom. But because of the big 3, and if you want to consider DeAndre Ayton the big 4, I feel like we were going to go in a sort of Frank Vogel direction in terms of signing players. And I feel like that's kind of what we've done. we've got defenders, we've got size, we've got strength, we've got shooters. And that's what a championship coach or champion coach in Frank Vogel and our new coaching staff, excuse me, kind of looks for. And I feel like that's the kind of guys that we not only signed, but we also brought back as well. Now, again, we're going to get into it, but there's a couple question marks on some decisions that we made that I was a little confused, but yeah. And, there were so many free agents available. I mean, I know that you guys were talking about them on the podcast and on Bright Side of the Sun and everything, and lots of players out there. And some of these caught me by surprise, like the Drew Eubanks one that I didn't see that one coming at all. But really the one that I was really, and we'll eventually get to it, was the Yuta Watanabe. That was the one where even like a long time ago, I was like, man, he'd be a great fit on the Phoenix Suns. So again, I don't know if I'm answering your question at all, but we got guys that are going to hustle, play defense, that can shoot, and will work. They're going to have to work their tails off to get minutes, especially under Frank Vogel.
Well, and I think you answered the question by saying that we're going to go for Frank Vogel type guys, and I think that's what this team did. We went after guys who are all between 6'8" and 6'10".
Yep.
We got guys who have defensive affinities. Outside of Yuta Watanabe, we got defensive type guys who you can bring in on the second team unit and provide some defense. Guys who could start on the first team units.
Yep.
Like KBD, Keta.
Yep. Keta Bates-Diop.
Man, I'm gonna have such a hard time.
His name, me too.
I just can't wait till like the fourth game of the season. I just got it down. It was like I remember back when Giannis Antetokounmpo came into the league. I'm like, I can't say that fucker's name.
I couldn't pronounce. Dude, same thing with Victor Wembanyama. I had no clue how to pronounce that name. I was just calling him Wemby.
Yeah, for the longest time.
Even now, I'm still gonna call him Wemby.
Yeah, just because like I don't have the cadence or the confidence to say their names, but Keta Bates-Diop. Yeah. He potentially, I'll tell you this. Last thing I did last night, like 11:30 at night, I throw on NBA 2K23, and I start fucking with rosters, and I make the Suns, the current version of the Suns, and I played a little bit, and I'm like, I like Diop as our 4 right now. Yeah. I like me personally. I'm a pro KD at the 3 kind of guy.
Okay.
I like him operating on the perimeter on both offense and defense.
Yeah.
Knowing that he has the size to go down and give you extra rebounding, but having him at the 3 and knowing that he's being guarded by opposing, shooting guards and small forwards is something that I like. So Diop gives you a little bit more of that interior physicality.
Yeah. And
so that's how I ultimately navigated it. But the one thing that you notice is the Suns don't really have a point guard. And we kind of knew this, right? We kind of knew that Vogel, based on the statements that he had at the Beal introductory presser, felt a point guard, a true point guard, by definition, wasn't necessarily a priority for the Suns in free agency. You take a look at some of Vogel's quotes. He said, "I'm very comfortable with Beal and Booker as the starting backcourt, but we're going to explore that 5th spot potentially being a campaign or a point guard, and we're going to explore it maybe being a 3 type 4 defender position. Those things will play out in camp. I love the idea of getting those guys down the floor with a point guard and advancing it up to him and letting them attack, but I know they can handle it as well on their own. The pace that we want to play with, I think the most possessions are going to have different ball handlers each time. It's going to be a multiple ball handler attack, but I'm comfortable with those guys." Then he did say, "But I do love what Campaign brings to the table." So if Campaign is the starter, even if Campaign is the starter, it's still point guardless, quote unquote, basketball, because Campaign's not a true point. And I know that if you go through and you look at a lot of the threads on Twitter, if you haven't hit your maximum number of views that you can look, that Elon Musk is like, you can only see 300 a day and you're out of here. Fucking worst time of the year to do this, by the way, Elon. Come on. We're glued to Twitter. We're trying to
see these updates.
He's a mad man. Don't make me go to Suns Facebook, man. Don't make me do it.
For real.
I'm not going there to scroll threads, because everyone on Suns Facebook is just like, but we don't have a point guard.
As toxic as Suns Twitter can be, Facebook is even worse. I've had to leave a few Facebook groups because it was so bad.
Me too. And that's the thing that they're talking about right now. Like you put it out there. It's like, hey, what do you think of the Suns and what they did in free agency? And all of us who are glued to this team, watching it day in and day out, those content creators, those writers, we love what they did. And I will say that I am pumped with what the Suns did. You go to Suns Facebook, like, but we don't have a point guard. It's like, what is this, 1985? We need Kyle Macy running the ball up the court for the 85 Suns? No.
Right.
Like, I like what Vogel's attack is going to be.
Yeah.
Do you like the fact that we haven't necessarily gone out and signed a point guard with some of those final spots that we have available?
Yeah, I'm going to lean heavily on yes, and it's really all because of everything you just broke down. You know, the great Frank Vogel quote and everything. But the one thing that stood out to me during that press conference, the Bradley Beal press conference, it was the main quote. Well, the quote that I took away was multiple ball handler attack. And you are right. Cameron Payne is not like a traditional. I like to use Chris Paul as an example. He's not like a Chris Paul type point guard, a Steve Nash, a John Stockton, whatever you want to label him as. He's sort of like a combo scoring fast guard. And that's okay. If he's our fifth starter, like our main point guard at times, I'm okay with that. But I really believe, because again, Frank Vogel said it so many times, multiple ball handler attack. I think even Bradley Beal referenced it. I think I'm okay with that. And you know this, Kevin Durant can play a little point. He can play make.
Yep.
He averaged like what, 5 assists last year? Like, I am fine with that. Now, that's why I said I lean mainly heavily on this like point guard list basketball. And I'd lean a little bit on Cam Payne being our point guard, like our main fifth starter or whatever. But I will say this could potentially be bad, because I hate to use this as an example, but like Boston didn't have a true point guard. We saw how things turned out for them. I'm sure there's some other teams that I'm forgetting that don't really have a true point guard and they could use one. But again, because of Beal, Booker, KD, I think we're going to be okay, man. I mean, that's a lot of playmaking. That's a lot of passing. That's a lot of just basketball IQ on the court. So I'm leaning heavily on just embracing this multiple ball handler attack, and maybe we'll find a true point guard somewhere in free agency or during summer league. Is Saban Lee still with us, by the way? Like, they've
offered him.
Yeah,
they offered him a qualifying offer as a 2-way contract, so he could potentially be the third 2-way contract.
I'm not saying he's the answer, but I just wanted to know if he was like still.
But
like,
he could definitely help. So I love two things. One, I love your choice in clothing today. We both decided to rock the orange. So way to go with us without even calling each other beforehand. Be like, hey, what are you wearing? You wearing purple or orange today, or is it going to be black? You gonna wear that Valley gradient? No. We both ended up with orange. But the other thing that you talked about is absolutely right. Is I think we're going to be okay. Who just won the title? Denver. Is Jamal Murray a traditional point guard?
Nope. Combo guard.
All right. Who won the title 2 years ago?
The Bucks.
Nope, that was 3 years ago.
That goes to show where my mind is. The Lakers?
The Warriors.
The Warriors, yeah. I'm sorry.
Is Steph Curry a traditional point guard?
No.
Okay. Then you go to the Bucks. Is Drew Holiday a traditional point guard?
Defensive point guard, not really.
Bingo. He's not. So see what I'm getting at, Suns fans, is you don't need Chris Paul. Chris Paul is the exception, not the rule in the NBA now. So knowing that you have two unbelievably talented guards in Devin Booker and Bradley Beal, who can both shot create, who can both distribute. Now, granted, not on the same level as a Chris Paul, but they can still do things on the same level from a distribution standpoint as a Stephen Curry, as a Jamal Murray, as a Drew Holiday. And you also have Kevin Durant, who has the ability to be a distributor and a playmaker himself. Knowing that that's your big three, we don't need that traditional point guard. So Suns Facebook, I'm talking to you. It's going to be okay. It's not necessarily needed in this modern day of basketball. What you need are playmakers. What you need are shooters. And the Suns, and what you need is size. And I feel like with some of these transactions, they've definitely added the shooting. They brought Damian Lee back, who can shoot. They brought in Yuta Watanabe, who can shoot. Diop, he can shoot a little bit too. Yeah. I mean, he had like 39% last year.
Yep.
His previous 4 seasons, I think he averaged 30%. So, and I think his 39% is on roughly about 2 attempts per game. So it's not like, oh my God, he's amazing, but he can shoot it.
Yeah.
So the Suns have provided themselves size and versatility, which is what they were lacking last year. Think back to the playoffs. Think back to the regular season. Now, the regular season is a different animal because everyone was so damn injured. But if you think about the playoffs, when this team was healthy, they lacked size against the Clippers, right?
Yep.
We were getting killed on the glass. Zubac killed us, right? Mason Plumlee came in and killed us.
He played good.
So they and their wings, due to the size of their wings, they were bigger than everybody we put out there. Yeah. And then you look against the
Nuggets.
buzzsaw that was the Nuggets, and
Yep.
it was Jokic. He was on a heater. He was on an all-time heater.
Yep.
The Suns like to run into guys who are on all-time heaters, like Giannis in the 2021 NBA Finals and Michael Jordan in the 1993 NBA Finals. Okay, it's Suns history. We run into guys who are on heaters. Just deal with it. But that being said, their lack of size, their lack of ability to take Aaron Gordon out of the game, allowed their third option, Aaron Gordon and MPJ, to be effective.
They both use their size against us too.
They both did.
Just drive the basket and score.
Bingo. So again, I think that while we don't necessarily have a traditional point guard, as you said, Geek, we're going to be okay. Now, that being said, you still have Russell Westbrook out there. Thank you, next. I just think we're going to be okay.
I'm sort of on the Russell Westbrook thing, but I just don't think it's possible, like especially with financially how it all work. I'm a Westbrook fan. That's just me though.
I love his grit. I love his grind. I love what he can be. But we saw in the playoffs the why. Why not? Because he went out and he won game 1 for the Clippers.
Yeah.
He was the one who was getting offensive rebounds in the final minutes. And then he lost a couple of games for him too because of his sheer inefficiency as a shooter.
Yep.
You can leave him wide open from 3 and he's just bricking it. Like, you want to take his brain and put it into DeAndre
and his like energy and hustle and effort. Yeah, you're right. If we had Russell Westbrook's brain in DeAndre Ayton's body, it'd be over.
It'd be over straight up
and
down.
And real quick too, especially since we got Bradley Beal, I just don't think it's possible to get Russell Westbrook. I mean, maybe there's a small chance, but who even knows if there's any interest there? Frank Vogel and everything. I can't see it.
But, yeah, I don't see it as either. I just good, bad, or indifferent. It is what it is, and I think that if the Suns do now remember they can roster up to 20 people in the offseason and start to make cuts and adjustments prior to the beginning of the season. So if you want to go out and get a couple more veteran minimum guys, and if you can bring back Torrey Craig potential, I think you go that route over a Westbrook route. And I think that we both could agree that we've already spent way too long talking about Russell Westbrook on this podcast. All right, so let's go through and let's talk about all the individual transactions that did occur. I want to talk about the player, what your thoughts are, and how you reacted to the news as it came in. So first up, as I mentioned, they decided, and they being our amazing general manager James Jones, to opt into Ish Wainwright's deal. Now, Ish Wainwright, $1.9 million non-guaranteed contract, club exercise. So essentially the way it works with Ish is his contract will become fully guaranteed. I believe it's January 24th.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Sounds about right.
In the year.
It's later in the year. So
sort of like a two-way deal in a way.
Almost, but you get more flexibility because two-way contracts can only play a certain amount. I think it's 45.
Yeah, 50.
Days
they might have upgraded it to I think 50. But yeah, you're spot on that.
So with Ish, at any point, if let's say that they go, okay, in 3 days, they decide I want to bring back Torrey Craig and I'm just going to get rid of Ish Wainwright. They only have to pay him for the amount that his contract is, it's through that point. There's no penalty to it.
Right.
So what are your thoughts on bringing back Ish Wainwright? And do you think that he's somebody who potentially the Suns could let go if they find a sexier option? And was it the right move to bring him back at all? So many questions.
Yeah, so many questions. And again, I hate to keep being this guy and keep giving these like answers, if you will, but maybe this is yet to be determined too. The Ish Wainwright news kind of happened early before all the chaos and everything. And I'm happy for him. I really do like Ish Wainwright. We all know he works hard, a great community guy. He's always in the Valley, always at games and everything, supporting the Phoenix Mercury and all that. And he's a football player trapped in a basketball player's body, if you will. And that's fine. I mean, those guys, there's tons of football players that could probably play in the NBA. And, we obviously know that he is limited offensively, except for when we played the Dallas Mavericks and he had that great game against Kyrie Irving and everything.
Yes,
but yeah, I do think that there is a possibility to where, especially if we bring back a Torrey Craig or if there's some other options on the table, we definitely let him go. And I think that's why when you mentioned his contract is, not really guaranteed and it's sort of like a two-way deal, that's probably smart. And I think he signed that knowing that. And again, man, this is going back to guys that are going to have to earn their role and earn their money. even if you are like a quote veteran or you've been on this team for a while, like you're gonna have to earn it. And but yeah, he works hard. You know, I'm excited for him, and we'll have to wait and see what happens, man.
Yeah, I think it was a move by the Suns that ultimately said, you know what, we're going to cover all of our bases, if you will. You know, we know that we have some guys that we're talking to via free agency, and they might be interested, but just in case,
Like a safety net kind of
it's a
insurance.
100%, 100%. There's like, you know, we're going to just be in case something doesn't go right, we're going to have Wainwright as our backup plan. That being said, I think that now that the roster's filled out the way that it has, he does become extremely expendable. And you mentioned a lot of his redeeming qualities that just as a human being, great human being, a grinder, somebody who's fought to be in this league. But with the talent that's going to be around him and his lack of real versatility, I think that he does become expendable. I think that he's too slow. His shooting from beyond the arc just isn't there. I think it's like a 32% 3-point shooter. And although
he's
he's
not consistent with it either.
Bingo. And he only can hit like the corner three, which is like, that's fine. But
PJ Tucker made a living doing that pretty much, but
he also played elite
the defender.
Defense.
Yeah, exactly. He's not the defender that PJ Tucker is as well. I will say this though. I'm not trying to interrupt you.
Please
I think
do.
I think Frank Vogel's going to love him, man. I will say that. I'm not saying he's going to be like Monty was with Landry Shamet and give him all these minutes, but I just think Frank Vogel is going to like him a lot. So
if he sticks around,
yeah,
I agree. I think that, yeah, he is somebody who Vogel might get excited to try to, you know, teach more of a defensive philosophy and help him make a living in this NBA being that.
Yeah. I just think he's going to like him, man, just because of all the qualities and stuff that we just mentioned.
But I do see him as being the most highly expendable due to the nature of his contract. It's not guaranteed. Like there's no penalty, just like, you know, see you, bye.
And again, he signed it, and you have to assume he knew that. So, and we all love Ish, you know, and everything, but it's part of the business, man.
Next up, Cameron Payne, the Phoenix Suns, fully guaranteed his $6.5 million contract. In my opinion, this one makes sense a lot. He is somebody, again, we use the word continuity with a team that's not necessarily has a lot of continuity, but he's what 4 guys left that were on the NBA Finals team. It's him, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, and Torrey Craig, and the bubble team. Going back to the bubble team, he's one of only 3 players that's bad. That was in my notes. It's crazy how long Cameron Payne's been a Sun, right?
That's why I just had that same thought. I'm like, man, that feels like a lifetime ago. And
jeez.
Yeah, you're right, man. But no, I think that this is a good move, man. And again, I mean this as respectfully as I can say it. This is a great insurance and a great safety net. And again, like you're bringing back that familiarity. And we all know when Campaign can be streaky-ish at times. There's some times where it seems like some teams can't stop him because he's so damn fast. Now he does put up some wild shots here and there, and we talked about it earlier. He's not like a real traditional point guard, but who knows? Maybe that all changes. Maybe during the offseason he works on his playmaking, and we see a whole new Campaign. You know, obviously health has got to come into consideration, really, with our whole team. And you never know. I mean, especially when we're in the gym at training camp, maybe something gets unlocked. But I think this is just a safe, smart, you know, bring back signing, whatever you want to label it as. So
I completely agree. It is smart and it is safe. Yeah. John Nelson in the chat, Payne, a 6-man in Vogel's system, I think. Absolutely.
I can see it.
And that's why, again, I think that it is a smart move for Phoenix to bring him back on the contract that they did, and that he has that explosiveness. He's going to be somebody who pushes the ball. You know, Jason L in the chat, Payne too reckless. He can be reckless at times. And I think that, you know, as Jay Money says, he pushes the pace like Vogel wants. And that's the key there.
He's fast too, man. And I will say, even if he's reckless, he is fast. So
yeah, and that's what Vogel wants. He said it multiple times in the Bradley Beal presser. I want to push the pace. This is going to be a guy who pushes the pace. So it made sense that was a transaction that the Suns pulled off. Then kind of one of the shocking ones was the fact that Jock Landale, his qualifying offer was pulled off the table like 20 minutes before free agency started. What were your initial thoughts when that happened?
Well, first off, I got to get a little bias here. Jake Fisher, who's been on my channel, was the first one to have that for anybody who cares. Because we all know, like, there's Team Woj, there's Team Shams, maybe a little bit of Chris Haynes and all that. But Jake Fisher does have connections. He's connected and everything. And he was the first one on that. But I was a little shocked. And, you know, that's sort of when I knew that things were going to change. And I was like, well, wait, what's going to happen with Bismack Biyombo now? And, like, but yeah, I think that was, I'll just say this. It's like, that just goes to prove that nothing is guaranteed in this league. And look, I'm sure that was a very difficult decision for James Jones. Let's be real. And Jock provided some great moments on the court. We all know how he is off the court, and he's a hard worker. He works his tail off, man. He doesn't mind getting dirty. He doesn't mind bumping and bruising and all that. But clearly with the guys guys that we're going to talk about, the Suns must just have a different direction, a different vision. But yeah, it definitely was surprising. And that happened fast. That was like before the chaos started, but going to miss Jock. You know what I mean?
I think we're all going to miss Jock. I think in honor of Jock Landale, we'll play his drop.
Jesus, this is a nice limo.
Yes, it is. Now suck my
Jock Landale.
Jock Landale.
One of my all-time favorite movies right there.
Me too. It's so funny. I'm such a child. I was shocked. I wasn't surprised. Because the moment it happened, I knew that the Suns were up to something. And you think about it, okay? Much akin to what I was referencing earlier with Ish Wainwright. The Suns are having conversations before 3 p.m. And Ish Wainwright was their backup plan in case one of their conversations fell through and somebody that they were targeting ended up signing with another organization. Jock Landale was another safety net.
Oh, yeah.
They offered him his restricted free agent amount, which was $2.2 million. And then they knew that they were going to have to navigate restricted free agency with him rather than potentially bring in his replacement right away. So they had Drew Eubanks, they had Metu, both on their board. Both most likely had conversations. Both probably had guarantees from both that they were going to come join the team. And so at that time, they're like, okay, Jock's, having Jock and Drew Eubanks is duplicitous. Ultimately, we already got we got our big white guy. We don't need we don't need two. It's like Aaron Baines to Jock, and now Drew Eubanks. So we'll talk about him momentarily.
It's like he's pretty much an upgrade. Sorry, but go on.
You're right though. You're 100% right. He is an energy guy. He is somebody who can play offense and defense. And while Jock brought the energy and the fuck shit up, I always said that you need fuck shit up guys. He was a fuck shit up guy.
For real.
In my opinion, the Suns didn't want to play the restricted free agency game. Okay, we've made you an offer. Now we have to sit for a couple days while we wait for you to explore offers from other teams and yada, yada, yada. And we just want to lock this down. So that's what they did is they let him go and they locked him down, which opened up the door for their first move once free agency opened, and that was to bring from Portland, and he previously played for the San Antonio Spurs, was Drew Eubanks. Drew Eubanks, as Doug Allen in the chat says, Drew is more skilled and athletic than Jock. He's a better rebounder.
Yeah.
I think that the Drew Eubanks signing is low-key a fantastic signing for the Suns because of what Doug just said, because of what you've said, because of what I've referenced. He's a more complete player. Think about who our backups were last year. You had Jock, who's a offensive firecracker, and you had Busy, who is a defensive stalwart. But they don't cross-pollinate. They're good on one end of the floor.
Yep.
Whereas Drew Eubanks is decent on both ends of the floor. Yeah. In his career, 6.1 points, 4.7 rebounds in 16 minutes played. And I know people hate the per 36, but from a per 36 standpoint, that equates to pretty much like 14 and 11. So he definitely has the ability to score as well as rebound. And I think that it was a very astute move by the Suns, and they got him on a fucking veteran minimum deal, SunsGeek.
Yeah, sorry if I jumped the gun there on giving my opinion about it, but it's true, though. He is like an upgraded Jock Landale, and you're right. He's good on both ends of the floor, and I feel like he's a little bit stronger than Jock Landale, you know what I mean? And he is really good in the post, doesn't mind, doing a little baby sky hook, if you will, putting it up. He hustles out there. He might kind of be – I feel like there's going to be potentially a lot of surprises on this team, sort of like how Josh Okogie, who we're going to talk about later, was a surprise last year. He might be one of them. And really, this all goes back to the Suns' big three and just having so many guys wide open, so many guys cutting to the basket and everything. But again, what he might do defensively as well, just being a big body out there, maybe teach DeAndre Ayton a little bit, you know, throwing an elbow, getting aggressive,
no such thing.
ball. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a little off, and I won't lie. I was live last night. I wasn't like super thrilled at the moment, but once I started processing it, I slept on it, did a little homework and all that. I was like, this could legit be a good signing. But again, to be determined. We will see.
Yes, we have a long way to go until we see exactly how his skill set equates on both ends of the floor.
And with this roster.
And again, at the same time, these are veteran minimum guys.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely huge that you're filling out your roster with guys who possess multiple skill sets. And I think that Drew Eubanks meets that criteria. The next transaction that occurred was the Suns bringing back Josh Okogie, which I got to say, when you take a look at all the transactions that occurred, I think that this was my favorite one.
Hey, Joe. Where you going with that?
I honestly thought that Josh Okogie was going to go out onto the market and get some good money.
Same here.
I really think that what he did last year, he signed a 1-year deal with Phoenix, and he elevated his game, and he showed how amazing defensively he was. And we knew that coming when he came over from Minnesota, but he grew his offensive game.
Yep.
And so the fact that the second transaction within the first 5 minutes of free agency opening was they brought Josh Okogie back, that's one where I clapped my hands and I pumped my fists.
Yep.
Because I was through the moon excited that we're bringing him back. He brings versatility. He brings defensive versatility. He brings, as we mentioned before, he's one of those tweener guys that allows you to try some different things with your starting line because he can be a part of a starting line because he showed us he can be a part of starting line. So bringing Josh Okogie back, in my opinion, was my number one favorite move that the Suns made yesterday. And there's some free agents they picked up, but bringing Okogie back, that's the curveball. That's the one I did not have a piece prepped for Bright Side of the Sun.
Because you didn't know what was going to happen.
Because I didn't think it was going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Torrey Craig I thought was going to happen. Damian Lee I kind of knew was going to happen because Mark Stein had put out in his Steinline report the day prior that Damian Lee is the surest bet to come back with the Suns. Yeah. But Josh Okogie, fuck me, that was fantastic.
Absolutely. And again, and we're going to touch on it eventually, as hyped as I was for the Yuta Watanabe signing, Josh Okogie was the one that I was also hyped about because I'm pretty much echoing everything you just said. He honestly could have went out and got a huge payday. And he, not really like a huge payday, but a pretty big payday. And he would have deserved it. And I'm sure there were some teams that probably were interested. But as he put on his Instagram account, he's like, let's run it back. He seemed like he really loves the Valley, loves this team, loves what we're building here. And again, even if he is the fifth starter for, I don't know, 45 games or something, and then maybe he starts in the playoffs, I think he's happy with that. I think he's embraced his roles, and I'm going to say roles, in Phoenix here. And again, good chemistry guy, good locker room guy. And you were talking about how we saw him grow on offense. I feel like we just saw him grow sort of as a person as well. And again, just him understanding that role, being with this team, building chemistry with the guys. I know Booker loves him. I'm sure KD does as well. And again, like I mentioned with Ish earlier, I'm sure Frank Vogel's going to love this guy, man. So very happy for Josh. As you mentioned, this is one where you were like clapping your hands, fist bumping and everything. I was too, man. I was like, hell yeah, Josh Okogie's back.
I got to say, the Vogel side of this is, again, something that when we first hired him on as a coach, it went through my mind. I was like, fuck, we got Frank Vogel, and he's not going to have a chance to coach Josh Okogie.
Yeah, man.
That is his kind of guy.
Was so up in the air, man. I didn't even know. So I agree with you, man.
It was, I was just so pumped when that transaction went through. So Josh Okogie remaining with this team is absolutely paramount to the long-term success and potential championship. I truly believe that. He's a swing kind of guy. Next up, the next transaction that occurred, and I verified it through Basketball Reference, it's Keita Bates-Diop. Keita.
Yeah.
Keita Bates-Diop was signed 2 years, $5 million. I think, again, this was another solid move by the Suns. He could potentially be the guy who is a Torrey replacement type, right? He's 6'8", little, doesn't have the broad shoulders that Torrey Craig has, but he's a two-way guy who fought his way into relevance. Give me your thoughts on Keita.
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you guys, and everybody on my live show saw it yesterday. I know very little about this guy. Like, I knew who he was. I knew that he kind of bounced around and was with the Spurs the last few years, but I didn't know much about him. Apparently last year he had like a 30-point game against the Lakers, brings you size, brings you a little bit of versatility and defense, 7'3" wingspan, I believe. But one thing that is standing out, and I hate to be like a box score stats guy reader, but it is true, 1.5 assists per game last year. And I know that was with the Spurs. That kind of stands out a little bit. Because, again, these guys are going to be wide open. These guys are going to be zipping the ball around. Maybe he could do a little playmaking here and there, with Beal and Booker and KD and everything. But, and as you kind of mentioned, maybe a Torrey Craig replacement-ish. And, again, this is at the very start of the show. This is the kind of player that I think I know the Phoenix Suns were targeting, all because of the things that you and I just mentioned just now. So
agree on all fronts. Doug Allen in the chat. And again, thank you to everyone who's watching and listening to the
crush
pod.
that like button, y'all.
We truly appreciate you taking some time out of your day to hang out with us on the Suns Jam session and on the SunsGeek channel. Doug Allen says in the chat, Bates-Diop is your best signing. He can switch. He can shoot. He's going to thrive playing with Book and KD and Beal. Yep. He's going to work so hard for his next contract.
Doug is spitting facts.
It is. And when you talk about Bates-Diop, again, like I said, he's a two-way guy who fought his way into relevance.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, not only are you bringing the players, and a lot of people, again, this is probably the Suns' Facebook side of the world, but they all wanted veteran minimum guys with, like, they wanted the Kevin Loves and the Derrick Roses and the household names. What the Suns did is they brought in fucking fighters.
Yeah.
Keita Bates-Diop is a fighter. Cameron, who they brought back, is a fighter. Josh Okogie is a fighter. These are guys who have fought for their relevance, and that's the kind of grinders that you need to put back, put around the basketball IQs of Devin Booker and KD, the grinder types, the guys who live, breathe the sport. Not to say that Derrick Rose and Kevin Love don't, but they're at the back end of their career.
Yeah.
We don't need ring chasers. We want people, as Frank Vogel.
I'm sure both of us on our shows are going to be doing that a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Pretending that Monty's still our coach.
Well, because I'm about to give you a Frank Vogel quote, and the Montyisms are gone. But Vogel said, about like Bradley Beal, he's like, champions act like champions before they're champions.
Amazing quote, by the way. Amazing.
It is. And that's what, Keita Bates-Diop, that's what Drew Eubanks, that's what a lot of these guys are bringing, is they're guys who, like Sawbucks 23 says, Suns bringing fighters reminds me of the 2020, 2021 season. It's exactly what that team was a team full of fighters and grinders. So that being said, this edition is another great, or it falls in that same vein of just that mentality. Now I'll ask you this. What number did Keita wear last year with the Spurs?
This might sound weird, but wasn't it like 38 or something? Or am I tripping?
I should have hit you with this first.
You know what time it is.
Trivia time.
I don't know why I'm thinking 38. Maybe I'm thinking Saban Lee because he wore that, didn't he?
He wore 38.
I don't know.
Keita Bates-Diop wore 31.
Oh, so I was sort of close-ish.
So the question becomes, does Matt Ishbia block his ability to wear 31 here in the Valley while simultaneously putting the Matrix in the Ring of Honor? It could happen.
Please let it happen. And there's so many other guys like that are on your wall that kind of deserve to be there as well. And we all know who those people are. But
I got my little Sean Marion bobblehead. Sean Marion, up until Devin Booker, Sean Marion was my favorite Phoenix Sun. He's still not in the Ring of Honor.
I know.
So
they got to get that done immediately.
Make it happen, Ishbia. Your move, baby.
And I forgot who it was on. Someone on Twitter also pointed this out, or it might have been in my live show. I understand digital and LED and all that's the way to go, but like, can we get like an actual thing for the Ring of Honor? I don't know if it's like a wooden thing or I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it used to be, and then they changed it with the new design of the arena.
And I understand that, but
The Rockets are nearing a deal for Ty Washington
just
Jr.
saw that. Yeah.
We both have our notifications on. That's
Usman
fantastic.
Gruba, who's like a good defender and everything. So, but wait, who are they trading or what are they getting back?
Yeah, it's nothing that pertains to the Suns, unfortunately.
Yeah, right.
So the next move that the Phoenix Suns made is they brought back Damian Lee. And you know that this is the Suns jam session, so you know that he's got a drop.
Today I met this cat. He said his name was Damien. He thinks that we're a lot alike and wants to be my friend.
I can't wait. There's so many new drops I get to make now that we have all these new fucking players.
I saw your tweet yesterday.
I was telling you before the pod. I'm like, I think for Bates-Diop, I want to do Hanson's Mbop and just overdub it with Diop. 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 Woo! Just like whenever we get new players, I just get so creative. And some of them, like, you have to wait and give some time and see who they are and see what nicknames kind of come up. But like some of them are just there. Like if you want to be my lover. So, anyways, bringing back Damian Lee. What were your thoughts on that one?
Not surprised necessarily, but like it makes sense, you know. And I think it might have been. Didn't you tweet out like you're bringing them back for the vibes and the shooting? Wasn't that you who tweeted that, or am I thinking of somebody else?
Mike V Hill.
Yeah, he tweeted that. Yeah,
he tweeted that.
And it does make sense, and it's a cheap contract. And again, someone it was my good friend Thunder Steve 85 pointed this out. Since he won't necessarily be targeted to an extent anymore because of Bradley Beal, Booker, and KD, maybe we see that first half of the season Damian Lee. You know what I mean? Because obviously after All-Star break, it seems like he fell off the earth and obviously lost minutes and was out of the rotation. So maybe we see sort of a resurgence and what we saw in the first half for Damian Lee. But yeah, wasn't too surprised, and it's a good deal. You know, it's cheap, and just it kind of is what it is.
Yeah, I think what we saw with Damian Lee is due to all the injuries that occurred last season, he started to have to play outside of himself.
Yeah.
Now, granted, he shot the third highest 3-point percentage as a member of the Suns last year, and two of those, one was campaign, and the other one was Kevin Durant. So the only Sun who was there the entire part of the season was our good buddy Damian Lee.
Yep.
And again, I think that he had to play outside of his normal role, and that's what took him away from the 3-point line, and it ultimately cost him at least our confidence. We know he's not a defender, and anytime you drive past Damian Lee, he's going to slap at a guy and get a dumb foul. Like, that's just what he does.
Now he'll get a technical for arguing with the ref.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. But at the same time, like, you have to respect the fact that he's that elite of a 3-point shooter.
Yeah.
And he's another one who, like Josh Okogie, I thought was going to go out into the market and garner more money. Are you surprised that are you surprised that he didn't?
Yeah, maybe that's what I guess I was more surprised with, because again, with the fall off and him losing rotation and minutes and everything, I just thought maybe he was going to move on, not really the Suns, if that makes sense. But yeah, the fact that he didn't get signed by anybody. I mean, the Warriors could probably use him. You know, they're limited on their bench, so I don't know.
Well, so many teams could have used him, and that's what's impressive.
Yep.
Is so many teams could have used him, and again, you know, he's choosing to stay in Phoenix, which is something that we have to respect and appreciate. And it's, again, on another one of those veteran minimum deals. So I think that's an absolutely huge win for the Phoenix Suns. The next signing was Chimezie Metu from the San Antonio Kings. Essentially, I would say taking the place of Bismack Biyombo, if you viewed Bismack Biyombo as our third string center, because that's what Chimezie's going to be. He's a third string center. He shot 29% from beyond the arc. He ain't shooting the 3-ball.
Right.
He is a defense. He is a physical guy. I think he's like 6'9", 6'10".
Yeah.
You know, tell me what your thoughts are on Chimezie.
Yeah, I think you kind of summed it up. He's another dog, another worker, and you know, you mentioned 6'9", 200 whatever pounds he is. He's big, he's long. He'll bring some defense. You won't see him shooting much. Just a guy that's going to have to come in here and work minutes. But I think this signing kind of is more about Bismack Biyombo, and that it's weird. Like, I don't know how to really view, because I don't know Bismack Biyombo personally, but I feel like he's quiet. And he, you know, that stuff's going to come later, like his contract and his future. So I guess it's sort of more about us letting Busy walk, if you will, or maybe Busy just decided to move on. I will just say this, though. I'm going to miss Busy. I thought he was great for us. I'm glad we kind of sort of revived his career, or however you want to word that. I'm glad he found a spot with us. And I know that the Suns loved him, and James Jones and Booker and all them. And I hope he lands on a contender and plays well for them.
Yeah, obviously with this move, as you referenced, Bismack Biyombo is most likely not coming back to Phoenix.
Biz.
Yeah, I don't know if there is no return of the Bismack anymore. And he had heart, he had hustle, he had defensive capability. He shot 35% from the line and was an offensive liability every time he was on there.
And got outplayed in the playoffs sometimes.
100%. You know, so you have to kind of pick and choose your poison. And I think that, you know, Metu, younger guy, again, a veteran minimum deal. Ryan in the chat, Metu doesn't make sense for the Suns. What does he do well? Man.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying too. I'm like, I don't really know. Like, I feel like I know more about Drew Eubanks in a way, and I don't even know that much about him. So even Kata Bates-Diop, I'm like, I don't know, man. So maybe James Jones and Matt Ishbia and Frank Vogel and all them see something we don't. Again, maybe this is one of the surprises that's just going to blow us all away. But like, I kind of doubt it. You know?
Well, this guy, he's going to be your 13th, 14th, 15th option on the bench. You shouldn't expect him to have so
a breakout
much.
Season.
He's not going to get the opportunity to do so. Exactly. You know, and again, when you talk about roster construction, so many fans will focus on the 12 through 15 guys and wonder why they don't get more rotations and why they don't get more playing time and why, you know, it's because there's a reason why they're the 12th through 15th. Yeah. You know, he's a break glass in case of emergency type player, in my opinion.
Yeah.
He's somebody who does have a defensive motor. And as we mentioned before, he could be one of those guys who's a fighter, a grinder, somebody who's had to earn where he's at. And I know when we played against the Spurs or the Sacramento Kings, God damn it.
It feels like he's on the Spurs though.
He
right?
does though. He does. It feels like we took like half the Spurs cast offs. You know, backcourt highlights says Metu is athletic and unlike Busy can shoot the three. His defense is also very serviceable. I think that's a good way to put it. And I feel like when we played the Kings a couple times, Metu had some good minutes against us. I remember seeing him. I'm like, that's low key, just a good guy to have on the bench because of what he can bring. And it is some athleticism. It's definitely length. And I think that that's what, you know, when you talk about the Phoenix Suns and how they're trying to build out this roster, as we mentioned at the front end of this pod, they're not looking for a bunch of guards, man. That's what we had last.
We already got all that too.
We had, well, remember last year, how many guards did we have? We had Dwayne Washington, we had Saban Lee, we got Chris Paul, we got Campaign,
Frank Jackson.
You know,
remember Frank Jackson?
Yeah, I remember Frank Jackson. Yeah, long time ago. Yeah. But at the same time, like you look at the construction of this team, and the Suns are clearly trying to go longer, trying to go bigger, and why, you know, Chimezie Metu might not necessarily be somebody who checks every box. I'll tell you what box he definitely does check. And that is the box of he took a veteran minimum deal. It checks the box of this guy's going to be at the back end of your rotation. He checks the box of somebody who, you know, can shoot the three ball, I think, a little bit. They said he can shoot the three ball. I feel like we need to check those stats because I don't know if that's necessarily
I don't know if that, like, as much as I don't know about him, I don't feel like that's accurate, like, at all.
Yeah, I feel like that's not that's incorrect, but maybe I'm wrong. Again, I don't know much about Chimezie Metu. I just know that he's somebody who meets a need and clearly is somebody who has got to be better than Busy, right?
That's where I don't know, man. And that's where I'm still, this all kind of goes back to Busy. I'm like, why wouldn't you just bring Busy back? Like, because again, you're bringing back that continuity and that familiarity and the size and the veteran leadership and the heart, as you mentioned. I don't know. This one was kind of confusing. And again, prior to the Utah signing, I wasn't like super hyped with a lot of these signings. Maybe because I'm greedy. Maybe it's because we got Bradley Beal and Kevin Durant and Booker now. But I was like, this is what we're doing. If like, what are we doing? But now it kind of makes sense now that I've slept on it, processed it and everything. So I don't know.
Well, and that's what it comes down to, right? You know, the fact that the Suns are doing and navigated the way that they did, if this is the one bogus thing, I'm okay with it. Are you?
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, it's just that's just the way that the cookie crumbles. Yeah. Any other thoughts on Metu?
Nope. We'll just see what happens.
What should I do for his drop? That's going to be kind of he's going to have to be one of those players who, again, I'll be, something will happen.
Yeah.
Something will come out in a game, and it'll just all make sense one day.
He'll have like a 10-point, 10 rebound game, play great on defense, and we'll be like, oh my God, that's what we're getting now.
And in the process of doing so, he will come up with some sort of nickname, the chimney.
Yep.
I don't know, Santa Claus.
Maybe during media day, he'll tell us what the meeting is.
Media. I'm really looking forward to media day.
He'll tell us what the nickname is. Sorry, not meeting.
Does it say anything on Basketball Reference about his nickname or anything?
That's a good question. I don't know. I'll look that up.
Yeah, you're in touch with the socials and such.
Yeah. By the way, for anybody who cares, Mo Wagner, however you want to pronounce it, returning to the Magic, 2 years, $16 million.
I figured he would. His brother plays there,
yeah.
So it's like, Mo Wagner, former Michigan Wolverine. It's somebody who I didn't necessarily see leaving them. So,
no right. Nicknames, man. I'm looking it up. Nothing on the nickname front.
Really?
So, yep, nothing, man.
All right. Well, let's move on to another exciting signing. After Chimezie Metu came the news that Yuta Watanabe was going to be a member of the Phoenix Suns, somebody who's definitely been targeted. And I don't know if anybody was watching your live stream yesterday when the news came in, but
screen, y'all. There it is. Boom.
This is
Yuta has signed with the Phoenix Suns. I love this signing, man. This is huge. Now, look, someone made a good point because he can shoot threes. He's a three-point shooter. He's got size. He plays his ass off. That's an understatement. Utah is going to be a fan favorite from day one.
There you go. I'm just going to cut it off there.
Okay.
For those of you who are listening, I cut to video that I sniped from SunsGeek's channel of him reacting in real time to Yuta Watanabe becoming a member of the Phoenix Suns. You're still excited, aren't you?
Yeah, and you know what? Like, I didn't think it was impossible for us to sign him because I think there might have been some reports that he was like linked to us somehow, and there was like some sources behind it.
Yes,
but I think it was more of the timing that I was surprised with. Because that just came out of nowhere. And I remember I was like talking about whatever. I think I was about to answer a question. And I just looked down at my phone. And I was like, I saw Yuta and I was like, oh my God. I was like, what happened? And then bam, Phoenix Suns. I freaked out. I had to like stand up and clap and everything.
Yes.
And again, go back and listen to that or just go to the clip that I uploaded on Instagram. Shameless plug. Go follow me. Twitter, TikTok. I uploaded it there. But pretty much, I mean, this guy can shoot. He can defend. And I'm telling you, sort of like Josh Okogie last year, who I believe won the Dan Marley Hustle Award. Mm-hmm. We're going to see a lot of effort out of this guy. I think he'll be a fan favorite from one day. And, the term sharpshooter sort of gets thrown around a lot, especially nowadays, since that's what the NBA really is, just sharp shooting, three-point shooting. But he is a confident three-point shooter. And Kevin Durant loves him, man. And I think I read this from Bright Side of the Sun earlier. When Durant was on the team, 52.3% on the field, and I think 55% from three. That was with KD and everything. Yeah. And obviously with the KD injury and the trade, his numbers dropped, his minutes dropped. But man, I just believe I'm not even trying to overhype it. I'm just seeing what from the eye test, man, and the stats that are in front of me. I think Suns fans are going to love this. What do you think, man?
This was a massive W for the Suns.
Absolutely.
Massive. Mm-hmm. I referenced earlier how Josh Okogie's addition or re-addition was my favorite move of the day. This was easily my second.
Preach.
And I think that what he's going to bring to this team is, as you mentioned, sharp shootability, better defense than people probably expect.
Yeah.
He's 6'9". He's a lefty. He's a left-handed three-point. It's
confident
like
shooter too.
He's like Asian Kelly Oubre, right?
I can see that. Yeah.
And I'm just so excited because if you look at a lot of wish lists for Phoenix Suns fans, Yuta was at the top of that wish list. And it's for all the reasons that you stated. He has a relationship with Kevin Durant because of his shooting. 51% three-point shooter from the corner. He's somebody who, like, I posted on Bright Side of the Sun about his signing, and I posted there a 20-minute video of his highlights. Watch it. It's great.
Watch Suns fans.
It's worth a watch just to see what this newest member of the Suns, because he's another one who could work his way into the starting lineup, and I would not doubt that.
Yeah.
You have him and you have Kevin Durant. You have these big, long forwards. who are threats from all over the floor. And he's going to be a guy with Okogie. We'll always remember the Dallas Mavericks game, right? Where KD's playing. I think it was his second game playing with the Suns. And Josh Okogie had 8 missed 3-pointers from the corner. That could be Yuta Watanabe standing out there and he's just fucking stroking it.
He'll actually make them.
And he'll make them.
Yep.
And it's just going to have such an effect offensively. And again, I don't know. I'm with you. I absolutely love this signing for the Phoenix Suns. I really, really do.
Again, it's like you mentioned, the Josh Okogie one was probably both of our favorites, but the one that wasn't returning, this was the actual signing that got me hyped. And this, again, the timing was so perfect. It was great. I loved it, man. And it might be a steal. We might look back at free agency even like 5 months from now and say Yuta was one of the bigger steals.
And a lot of people across the Twitter sphere, across the NBA, think that the Suns and all the moves that we just referenced did an absolutely fantastic job, given the fact that everything that we just talked about, they still have Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, and Devin Booker. So they've filled out their roster with these guys, versatile, defensive, some shooters. They have all the aspects there. Now, it's still, as we mentioned at the top of the show, they still have some opportunity to identify who that 5th starter is. And that's what's going to happen in training camp. That's what Frank Vogel's going to put this team through, is he's going to put them through drills and situations and take an opportunity to see who is the clear number 5, or if it's, hey, we're doing this based on matchups. You know, we got a smaller team. Let's put Okogie out there. Okay, we got a team that struggles defending the perimeter. Let's put Yuta out there. We have a team that likes to penetrate the interior. Let's put, KBD out there. So many options for the Suns. Now, obviously, the other side of this is there's numerous Suns who won't be returning. You have, for example, the Outlet Boys, which are TJ Warren and Terrence Ross aren't going to be coming back.
Ross.
The Outlet Boys.
Maybe they are coming back and they just haven't signed them back yet.
That's a possibility.
So if you take a look at 4 players who aren't returning, you have Terrence Ross, TJ Warren, Torrey Craig, Bismack Biyombo. Is there any one of those who you would prefer over anybody else, seeing as now the Suns have built out the roster in the manner that they have?
Maybe this is a bias, maybe a casual take, if you will. TJ Warren, just because of the history with him and just because we didn't really see TJ Warren. I mean, I don't know if that was just Monty and his decision-making or him not being very consistent when he did play. I mean, he, was fine throughout some games, but we didn't really see TJ Warren. So I would choose him. And again, we all know what he can bring to the team. A little bit of size, a little bit of defense here and there, but I'd say Warren.
Of all those guys that we mentioned, it falls into the same conversation we were having earlier. None of them are point guards.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So this is a bunch of wings. Torrey Craig is the obvious choice, in my opinion, especially for the financial reasons that we stated above.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You can bring him back on like a $12 million deal. If you need to trade that deal, it becomes a stackable contract. I think that there's multiple reasons as to why bringing Torrey Craig back would be beneficial to this team. But he is somewhat duplicitous with like a Keita Bates-Diop.
Yeah.
And with the Yuta Watanabe and a Josh Okogie. I feel like there's just, now again, I've said this phrase throughout my time covering the NBA. You never can have too many wings, and that's what he brings. I also really like Terrence Ross. I'm leaning towards Terrence Ross because I like that offensive firepower, knowing that you did bring in some defensive guys. You need to balance that out. And Damian Lee, for example, is a great offensive player from beyond the arc, but we saw coming off the ball, he can't do shit. Okay. Whereas Terrence Ross, he can shoot all over and he can, create his own shot a little bit if that's what we need from him. So I don't know if there's necessarily a wrong answer or a right answer, but it is going to, as every season it does, it hurts to say goodbye to some of the guys that you just have such an affinity for because you watch this team day in and day out and you see the promise that they have and you see what they can bring to a team. And at this point, there's just no room for them and the other side is like, what are they going to garner in the market? I really don't know.
And maybe also just a different direction, as Chris Paul said, with his thing with Matt Ishbia and the interviews and all that. Maybe this is just, maybe James Jones just sat them all down, had a conversation, just said, we're going in a different direction. Sorry. Good luck on the market. I don't know. I have no information or sources on that. I'm just saying it's probably what happened.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Now, there is something that we do on every post-game show is we go into the subreddit of the opposing team to hear what their perception is on the team.
They kind of know best.
They do. They know their own team. So, if the Suns are playing the Spurs, we'll go into the Spurs subreddit. Yeah. Matthew and myself, who's normally on the show, it's John and Matthew Jam, Suns Jam Session podcast. We'll hang out there. We'll take notes so we can understand how the opposition is seeing our team during a game, right? Well, I've done the same thing for the new editions of the Phoenix Suns.
The Suns Jam Session subreddit stakeout.
I went in undercover. I still wear my Suns gear, as you can see, but I had on some blue sunglasses, so no one knew it was me. Last thing I want them to do is know it was me. And I wanted to understand how they perceived their outgoing players. So, starting with Drew Eubanks, for example. One of the first comments, the Trout of Shackdale has moved on. Now, Drew Eubanks once called himself the Trout of Shackdale in his pregame interview. And for some reason, everybody absolutely loved it. I think I have no idea what it means. And I know that in time we will know what it means. Yeah. But yeah, the Trout of Shackdale. That's a good start for our buddy Drew Eubanks. Somebody said, I'm going to miss the vault meme more than anything. And that's because there's a picture of him, looks like he's vaulting. This one hurts. I know he's not great, but I loved having our hometown guy on the team. He was a Portland guy who was from, who played for the Portland Trailblazers. No. Oh, and also he went to Oregon State as well. So he's definitely an Oregon guy. What else did they say? I had better notes. I'd be surprised if a legitimate backup exists for the price point that Portland has to offer. He's a great center, and he can play the power forward position, essentially. If Portland needs to fix the fact that he's gone, or we're just going to have a repeat of last year. So he's definitely somebody who was valued in Portland circles.
Real quick, I was just going to say, too, with Drew Eubanks and really a lot of these guys, these are not necessarily like veterans, but they've been in the league. They've been around. Like Drew Eubanks is like 5 years, going on 6. So I think that's another reason why we got these players. Just
they're
James
Jones guys, right? Like these guys are 100% James Jones.
They're not like rookies, is what I'm trying to say.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Looking at Keita Bates-Diop. Yeah. Somebody in, this is going to the Spurs subreddit. I'll miss KBD. 2.5 a year is a steal, though. And somebody said, yeah, 2.5 million for someone who will be a solid rotation player for the Suns. I think he will show out and have a Bruce Brown type of role.
Yeah. That's a little hard to say just because he won a championship and then just got a payday after. But
yeah,
I get what they're saying.
I respect KBD. But he's way too limited athletically to approach Bruce Brown level impact, in my opinion, somebody said. Let's see. What else did they say? This sucks. Loved having him on the Spurs. Perfect glue guy. Knew his role. Didn't deviate out of his lane. Love to hear that. Mm-hmm. Love to hear that. I'll miss him. Bye, KBD. I'll miss you and your Euro steps. He deserves this, honestly. He's an amazing role player and deserves an opportunity to be on a championship caliber team. So, again, great words coming out of the Spurs subreddit. When we talk about Chimezie Metu, looking at the Kings subreddit, the most confident shooter I've ever seen. Some might even say too confident.
Okay.
Bye, Mezzi. Love your energy and getting to see a fellow Trojan ball for Sacktown. So he went to USC.
Yeah.
And then somebody said, let's sign Jock Landale in retaliation. God, I love subreddits. That's where I'm going to have to start going instead of Twitter because Twitter shuts itself down. It's like, just go to Reddit.
Yep.
He seemed like a fun guy. Glad he got to experience the Beam season with us after being around those 2 terrible ones. No. Who will represent us at the next NBA PA meeting? Dang, going to miss Mezzi. Add him to the list of guys I'll always root for. And just a bunch of, I'm going to miss him. Damn. Yeah. Things of that nature. And then, of course, there's Yuta Watanabe. If you go to the Go Nets subreddit, they literally had a post called Thank You, Yuta. Never forget that corner 3-ball. Good night, sweet prince. The first 20, 30 games last season, we had the highest 3-point percentage in the league before we lost Katie and Kyrie, was one of my happiest periods as a Nets fan. My heart, I can't. I know we weren't going to compete this year, but no, Utah, damn. This season's going to be harder to watch. Good luck, man. I'm still going to wear my Watanabe jersey.
Fan favorite, I'm telling you, man. Especially in Brooklyn, maybe even a little in Toronto as well. And I can definitely see Nets fans missing him a lot.
And know that from a Suns just marketing standpoint, all of Japan is behind this guy.
Absolutely.
They just got a whole new, like, I now follow Yuta Watanabe on Twitter, and I have no idea what he's saying because it's all in Japanese. We love you, Yuta Deshuta. Ooh, I like
that.
you. I like you that. Well, this one's going to hurt like a son of a bitch. One of my favorite Nets. We're going to suck so hard next season. We'll miss you, Yuta. I really hope we'd keep him, but it'd be nice to see him reunited with KD, though I don't like the Suns. I guess I need a new flair now. So there you go. That's how opposing teams and fan bases are looking at the players that the Phoenix Suns have now acquired.
The Suns Jam Session subreddit stakeout.
All right, SunsGeek, as we get ready to close out the show, I'm going to ask you just a simple question. What grade do you give the Suns overall on how they've navigated free agency on day one?
Is A- a fair grade? I don't know if you can really go
You're the
any
teacher.
lower. Apparently I'm a teacher. I'm going to go A- because we've pretty much recapped it all, man. And real quick, well, I guess I'll say this after my grade. I'm going to give it an A-. There obviously are still some questions that are yet to be determined.
Agreed.
And I am just telling you, Suns fans, I feel like we're going to see so many experiments, which could be bad, could be good. But that's what training camp's for. That's what the preseason's for. You know what I mean? And maybe a little bit earlier in the season. But one thing that I think is kind of getting overlooked here is just the Suns do have a lot of talent, a lot of versatility. And I like how they got pretty much everything done in one day. Now, again, there might be some sprinkled moves here and there. Maybe a summer league guy joins the team or some random free agent or maybe a trade down the road. But pretty much, I'd say like 98% of our off season's done. And I talked about that a lot yesterday. And I think I'm okay with that. So I'm giving it a solid A-. And you know what? The off season's not over. Just saying. Well, what grade are you going to give it?
I agree with you on everything you just said. I really do. And before I give you my answer, I want to shout out Lufa in the chat. $4.99 a super chat. He said Jordan Usher is a 6'7" guard forward on our summer league team, and he will get a two-way, mark my words. He's a baller.
Hot take.
So Usher, keep eyes. You know, summer league starts on the 7th. Check it out. Keep your eye out on.
We actually have a
Jordan
reason
Usher
to watch this year too, because we got guys on our team that will be playing. I'm excited, man.
Yes, Isaiah Todd's going to be on the team. Tumani Kamara's going to be on the team. Jordan
Goodwin as well.
Jordan Goodwin's going to be on the team.
That one kind of surprised me too.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, he's still young and everything, but it kind of surprised me. But it's just more reps, more practice. You know, why not?
See what he's got. Yeah. And I'm excited because in less than a week, we get to watch some Suns basketball.
Exactly.
Looking at the chat, Suns Fever, one of our elite jamsters. If you want to become an elite jamster, hit the join button down below. Gave the off-season transactions thus far through day one an A+.
That's right.
June DeFool gave us an A. Sawbucks 23, B+ with the money that they had.
Yeah, that's a good point.
GOD3, A, and we're not done.
Yep, preach.
Laced Bacon gave us an A. Let's see if there's any more grades. And then looking, I put a Twitter poll out, I think yesterday, with about 1,200 votes. 65.1% of Suns fans think that the Suns have garnered an A for their grade via day one of free agency. 30.7% give them a B, 2.8% a D, and 1.4% a D. I'm with you. I give them a solid A. I don't give them an A-. I don't give them an A+.
Solid A.
I think it's a solid A. You know, like John Nelson, an A-. CL Oracle, an A-. D Books Prods, an A. Fabio, free agency is an A-, but the offseason so far has been an A+. Agree with that. Agree with that, because we got Bradley fucking Beal. And Andy Cruz, A- so far. But if they go and get Russ on a vet minimum, that's an A+++.
I agree with Andy.
Yeah, you guys and your Russell Westbrook love. You keep it up. I think that this is they exceeded my expectations. I thought it was going to be really hard, and I had my targets out there, but a lot of my targets I was just like, meh, because I didn't know because the challenge was, because we had so few guys truly rostered, we didn't know what they were going to do and how they saw themselves. Now we got a preview of that again as Frank Vogel tipped his hand a little bit in the Bradley Beal press conference. He kept mentioning campaign, and Dwayne Rankin's like, so campaign's coming back, and
it's internal.
James Jones, like, that's internal. Dwayne's like, Dwayne, that's internal. He's like, okay, but what about Darius Baisley, another guy who's not coming back?
By the way, that was one of the funniest and most intense.
I love it.
A lot of fun, like, press conferences in Suns history. I was so glad I witnessed that and was listening to that in live time. I don't know if we'll ever see that again. It was hilarious.
Yeah, Dwayne. We'll get to what you and I just saw here momentarily.
I know. I was like, wait a minute, what?
Dwayne Rankin does an absolutely fantastic job as a Suns beat writer.
He was doing his job in all fairness. It was just hilarious, though.
Oh, I can't wait. When I do media day, I'm going to ask DA like what his conversations have been like with Frank Vogel and how do those differ from the conversations I had he had with Monty Williams. I'm asking that question.
Man. Do it, man.
I'm asking that one. Like, I already written down, like, that's the question I'm asking DA when the time comes. But again, I think that an A is perfect. The way that this team is navigated, and now that we have an understanding of who and what they want to be and what their vision is, it's something that is just it gets you excited. I'm pumped. I want fucking the season to start next week.
For real.
Summer league's going to go on for a couple of weeks, and then we go into the dog days of summer and the doldrums. But that being said, and so says Jay, yes, I fucking will.
Oh, he will.
So you've been around me when I've asked questions of like James Jones. I'm not afraid to ask any dumb question or any intense question. Even though we're going to head into the doldrums of the dog days of summer after summer league and before summer training camp starts, keep those notifications on. If you're a Suns Jam Session follower, keep those notifications on. Go to SunsGeek channel. Turn on those notifications. You never know when we're going to go live and talk about something and bring you some more Suns content. That's why you come here, and that's why we appreciate you taking some time out of your day to do so. Before we get out of here, SunsGeek, and before you give everybody your socials, tell me that tweet you were just reading.
Yeah, I was going to ask you this too. So Chris Haynes, and I know he's been a little weird with his reporting lately, but he's kind of been on this one. I will say that a potential Portland-Miami deal for Damian Lillard would almost certainly include the involvement of a third team. League sources tell NBA and TNT and Bleacher Report. So real quick, again, he's been on this a little bit. He even put out a little article and he pretty much mentioned what he did in the tweet. I want to ask you, John, and I don't know, I don't want to keep the podcast going too long.
No, you're fine.
This obviously isn't a Blazers podcast. What are your thoughts on the Damian Lillard situation? Did the trade today surprise you at all? Where do you think he's going to end up? And especially now with this announcement that a third team might have to be involved. What's your whole take on the Dame stuff?
So I have a good friend who's a Portland Trailblazers fan, and they reached out to me today, and they're like, "Oh shit!" And Lillard's requesting a change or a trade, and I said, "It's about Dame time
for real."
And my response essentially was, they just signed Jeremy Grant to a massive deal and drafted a younger version of Dame. No reason to stay. They ain't building a winner around him.
Yep, exactly.
I'm not surprised. And I think that if we talk about a third team being involved, I think it's the 76ers. I think that James Harden just signed his or just accepted his player option for $35 million and then immediately said, trade me. I want the fuck out of here.
Yeah, for real.
So there's going to be a lot of movement. There's going to be some big names, some draft picks, things of that nature involved, some trade exceptions and whatnot. But I think that Dame Lillard ends up in Miami, and I think that James Harden potentially could be a part of that deal.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty much going to echo everything you just said. I will say this, though, is whenever this trade does happen, and first off, this was more of a when it's going to happen, not if it's going to happen. I think 99% of us knew he was going to request a trade, especially after the Jeremy Grant signing. That was a massive deal. Kind of looks weird now, too. But I'll just say this. I don't think the Blazers are going to do like what the Washington Wizards are doing, to where they're just going to completely tear it all down. They still might win a few games. I mean, they got some young talent over there. Scoot Henderson, Shaedon Sharpe, a few other young guys over
Anthony
there.
Simons.
Anthony Simons and whatever else they get back in this package. I'm not saying they're going to be a playoff team, but they're not going to be like terrible. And real quick, the Washington Wizards, I have no clue why Kyle Kuzma re-signed.
Me neither.
I guess that's okay. they might be fun to watch in terms of offense, but I think they're probably still going to be one of the worst teams.
Oh, guaranteed. Defensively, they're going to be horrible. And the reason Kyle Kuzma re-signed with Washington is because the market that's out there.
Money.
Yeah, he put himself out there, and he probably didn't get the calls that he expected because due to the new CBA, money is changing in the NBA. You're not going to have a bunch of guys out there making $24 million because that's going to really, really hamper you when it comes to the second tax apron and the first tax apron ultimately. And so there was like 5 teams that could have brought him in, like, the Houston Rockets and the San Antonio Spurs
and the Sacramento Kings. There was rumors about that. That would have been interesting too. I would have liked that for them.
That would have, but they just spent all that money on Harrison Barnes. So again, duplicitous. Why would you do that? Stay with the guy who you know versus the guy who you don't. So that's why. And then he's hoping that in a couple of years, when the TV rights deal kicks in and salaries essentially have the ability to go up, and that second tax apron goes over $200 million, that he becomes a tradable asset, and then he gets what he wants.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, maybe they'll trade him down the road. Maybe
that's what they'll do.
1 year, and because again, they got all the time in the world. They have all these assets and flexibility, so you might as well have Kuzma as a future trade chip, and then maybe all of a sudden they're in the playoffs. Who knows?
You enjoy our second round picks, Washington. You enjoy them because I didn't. I don't care. You're not going to find another Jokic. Fucking
James Jones didn't care either. We all know that for a fact. So
no fucks given. So on that note, Jamsters, we're going to go ahead and we're going to get it at all. We truly, truly appreciate you spending some time with us, whether you're watching along live, watching later, or listening at a later time. Thanks for taking some time out of your day to spend with both myself and with SunsGeek. Make sure you follow the show at SunsJam on Twitter, if Twitter still exists after the show.
For real. I know.
Make sure you follow me at Darth Voida and read all of my writing at brightsideofthesun.com, the best fan blog site relative to the Phoenix Suns on the interwebs. SunsGeek, tell them where they can follow you.
Well, just real quick, John, once again, congratulations on being the manager and, the main guy at Bright Side of the Sun. And you and your team do an excellent job over there. I'm always on that website, and I've even been a part of that website a couple of times. Shout out to Rod, and you're doing a great job over there. You're doing a great job with the podcast. Shout out to Matthew Lissy as well. We miss you, man. And thank you for inviting me on. And I want to echo something that you said earlier. Turn on our notifications, or at least follow us on Twitter. Follow SunsJam on Twitter. Follow me on social media and Instagram, because as we did today, we could just go live spontaneously. You know what I mean? Like we did with Bradley Beal and everything.
Yes.
And even if we're just doing our own separate things, turn on our notifications, follow us. But what I'm trying to say here is follow me on SunsGeek. I'm on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. I'm doing YouTube shorts on YouTube and everything, and live shows and videos, and I got lots of stuff planned. Maybe me and you are going to do some more stuff, Matthew Lissy as well. So I'm excited. It's going to be a great off season. It's going to be a crazy one, apparently, with the Damian Lillard stuff. So just turn on those noties. Make sure to follow us.
Yeah, and again, follow Matthew Lissy at Matthew Lissy on Twitter. And if it has to do with the Phoenix Suns, that this guy's going to make a video about it. So on that note, everybody, just do me one favor. Okay, we've asked for like 10 favors, right? Like subscribe, rate, review, thumbs up, follow, notifications on. But above all else, go home and love your family.